Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So today I got another 13 striper trap for you, helping protect the garden and flower beds, all that kind of stuff. I will warn you, I tend to call these things gophers. They're not really gophers. Gophers are, at least the ones that we have around here, the true gophers. They've kind of got real squinty eyes. They've got a lot longer claws. Their hands are kind of turned to the side a little bit, and they actually burrow through the ground, and they'll like fill in their, so they'll like make a run, and then they'll like fill it in behind them. So when you see the holes in the ground, there'll be a hole there, but then there'll be like a whole bunch of soft dirt in the top of it. That's an actual gopher hole. These are 13 stripers. 13 stripers are an awful lot more like, they're kind of like a small version of a prairie dog. Usually they're, the big ones I've seen without the tails have been about that long, so 7 inches or so. The small ones are 4 or 5 inches, something like that. Got myself an ant on my leg there. Anyways, so these little things, they get in the garden and they're almost as bad as, they probably are just as bad as rabbits. Although rabbits are, cute and cuddly, these things aren't really. Maybe every once in a while. But still, the rabbits, you can put chicken wire up, and that will keep most rabbits out of your garden, except for the really athletic ones that like to jump. And I've seen them. They will do a standing jump and jump 24-inch chicken wire to get in, on top of it. So, but 48-inch chicken wire will typically keep all of our cottontails out of the garden. I haven't seen any of them burrow underneath it to be able to get into the garden, but these 13 stripers absolutely will. And they will, the smaller ones can get through chicken wire. So, these little 13 stripers, you shoot the things. I've tried snaring them with snares made out of fishing line leaders, and that works okay. But the problem with them and snaring is that since their head is actually, when they're smaller, their head, I think, is a little bit wider than what their shoulders are. And when you watch them run, they have their nose really close to the ground. So typically, if you've got a snare, they will, unless you have that snare touching the ground, and even then, sometimes I think they just go underneath it. And then, if it's big enough for them to get their heads through, it's kind of tough to snare the things. So anyway, so I decided to, I was watching some more YouTube videos, and somebody had a squirrel box. I think they also catch mink in these. I don't really have any experience with mink. Squirrels, like the tree squirrels, we don't really have a whole lot of them here. We don't really have enough trees to support tree squirrels all that much. So we don't get a lot of tree squirrels. But these boxes right here have been working pretty good. The reason this one's in the shop is because I just caught one, and I had to bring it in the shop and rebait it anyway, so I figured I'd show it to you. These are kill traps, okay? What's inside here is a Victor rat trap, okay? Now the problem, so Victor rat traps and mouse traps are really amazing for what they are, right? I mean, for a buck or $1.50, whatever these things cost, I mean, they will catch and catch and catch and catch and catch until there's just nothing left of the trap, until the wood pretty much, rots away and the staples can't hold the springs in place. I mean, they'll just catch forever. But if you take these things, our old garden at our place in town, we had an awful lot of mice in the garden, and they would get in there and then, eat whatever it was that my wife had planted. So I thought, well, mice, I'll set mouse traps. So I set a couple of these mouse traps out in the garden, baited them with peanut butter. I figured what mouse doesn't like peanut butter. And they'd catch mice, but they'd also catch birds. And you know, when a mouse would come up, he would eat that peanut butter, and it would come over and it'd catch him across the back of the neck, across the shoulders, you know, whatever, and you know, it would be lights out. The birds that got caught in this, they weren't that lucky, okay? They would land on it, okay? And so you would get birds that got caught by a leg, got caught by, you know, across the hips. It just really wasn't a very good thing. And so anyway, so I got to thinking about this, and I thought, well, hey, if I was to take this Victor rat trap and put it inside of a box so that that box kept everything that I didn't want to catch off that trap, and size the hole in the door big enough so that what I wanted to get in there would get in there, then I would have a trap that was, you know, relatively species selective, which is what you want when you're trapping, right? I mean, you don't want to catch what you don't want to catch, especially with a kill trap. So, and this has been working awesome. You know, this is set out there when my wife lets her chickens run around. I mean, I've got birdseed on the face of it. The chickens will eat the birdseed that's on the face of it, but they can't get their, either they can't or they won't get their heads in there deep enough to be able to get to the trigger of the trap, you know, to be able to hurt them. I've had these set now for a couple of weeks. I've seen sparrows and starlings, and I can't remember if I've seen any robins or not. Collared doves and mourning doves, they'll come up and get the seed around the front, but they won't stick their head in there, or they won't stick their head in there far enough to trip the trap. The only thing that I've had a problem with getting in here that I didn't want is mice will get in here, and since these are rat traps, the triggers are a little bit more, they're not as sensitive as a mouse trap, and so the mice can get in there and eat your peanut butter and rob your trap and then, you know, leave, but that's okay. So anyway, so that's why we build these things right here, and that they're working really good. So now let's get on with the build. So the build here is it's straight up cedar privacy fence pickets, okay? Because cedar is, you know, once it gets weathered, it's pretty much almost weatherproof. I mean, it gets to a point where it's weathered, and then it just kind of quits weathering anymore. So all it is a, you know, a little box with a tongue out on the face of it so that they've got a place to sit. The back has just got some hardware cloth that's just been stapled onto the end, because really this isn't a live trap. So if they came in here from the back, more than they're not going to make it that far, all right? And then we've just got a piece of wire right there to hold the door in. The door is just a piece that's sized for the, you know, to be able to fit on there like that, and then the wire goes across the face of it. And then this is I'm going to say it's an inch. It is an 1 1/8 size hole right there. Now that is fairly important. Like I said, those 13 stripers, you have the little ones, which are more common, but every once in a while you've got just a ginormous one, you know, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of frickin' 13 stripers. And the first one that I caught in this trap, I watched him go in there with binoculars, and he was so big he had to kind of wiggle his way to get in there deep enough to be able to get the trigger and get the peanut butter. Okay, so the trap is just a normal Victor rat trap. I did adjust the trigger here to be a little bit more sensitive. The way that I load these up is with peanut butter and birdseed. So we take some peanut butter here and get it all mashed up in the trigger and kind of get it underneath. The stuff that comes on the underside, I like to wipe that off and then put it back on the top. And that way it doesn't tend to kind of stick on the top of the trap. Okay, and then I like to take birdseed and put, you know, embed birdseed into that peanut butter. that kind of gives them something else to kind of gnaw on. Now, I'm not going to quite set this yet because I want you to see, we better go over dimensions. So this is 5 3/16 wide cedar fence pickets. That is just a hair over a ½ inch thick. The box itself, you make it just big enough for the rat trap to go in. So this is 8 inches from back to front without the cover. It is 5 1/4 inches on the outside from this side to this side. The tongue at the bottom here, that is 13 inches overall length. And I just hold them together with drywall screws. Now, I'll give you a kind of a view here of it. So that's about how it sits. Well, maybe not. Maybe we'll put this up here, and then you can kind of see. There we go. Okay, so it does seem to help to have this hole up a little bit. So the bottom edge of that hole is 1 1/4 inches from the edge of the board. And what that does is they get in and they kind of have to go down to get to the trigger. Okay, so I mean these, mice and probably these 13 stripers too, they've got incredibly fast reflexes. Maybe that'll help. I mean, I've watched them, jump back and get clear of traps before. So you want to put their body position into such a way that they are kind of committed to the trap before the trap springs. And that way it really reduces, so if they're able to jump back really fast, it might catch them across the snout instead of across the back of the neck or the head, and make them suffer quite a bit instead of just killing them. So anyway, so you want to get that trap fairly close to, the edge here so that it doesn't wobble back and forth. And yeah, so they'll come in and kind of, they'll come in but then kind of come down at an angle. Of course, this will be up a little bit, but still, it seems to be working pretty good. So we'll go ahead and set this. This is the tough part. For me, like mouse traps, okay, well, mouse traps, when you slip a little bit and you get bit, they don't really hurt all that much. Well, these rat traps, those springs are quite a bit stouter. So the trap is set. We'll push it in. Now, that trap can float back and forth in that box. See how there's room on the side? So I just cut these little sticks to kind of center it up. It might even work best to kind of purposefully offset it, and that way they have to kind of come up, go down, and then kind of to the side. And maybe that would also, if you're having a problem with them, backing out of it, then they'd have to kind of come around, and that might solve that too. Then your door goes over the face of it. That piece of wire is held in place by staples on either side, up here and here. So, you just push it down and that snugs it up nice and tight. And like I said, this, we've got baby bunnies out there right now, that aren't, but, well, they might be kind of juveniles right now, but, juvenile cottontails, they haven't gotten in there. Sparrows haven't. The one time that I had a problem that I wasn't really happy with the catch was one of those little bitty 13 stripers. That was before I reset the trigger and made it really light. It was one of the little ones, so he didn't really weigh a whole lot. So he was able to get in there, smell the peanut butter, start eating on the thing, and then crawled the rest of the way in, and then while he was in there, it went off. And so it caught him kind of across the hip, and so that wasn't a very good catch. But the rest of the time, so then I adjusted the trigger, and that kind of seemed to solve that. So the rest of the time, I mean, it works really good. I take some of the birdseed and I put it there in the front, and I'll put a couple of kernels just kind of on the mouth right there. The idea being to get them up in here to where they smell that peanut butter. I don't know how well their sense of smell is, if they can smell 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, what. But this seems to be working pretty good. And then I'll take, when I go set this out, I'll take another handful of birdseed with me and kind of sprinkle it kind of around the outside of that. And then they'll come up, eat the birdseed, you know, hit that part, smell the peanut butter, get in there, and usually, you know, they'll get a couple of licks on that peanut butter, and the second they try to grab one of them kernels or a little bit, you know, the trap goes off, they can't back out, comes over and snaps, and it's over and done with, which is kind of what you want. You want them to be eating and then, you know, up there in that garden in the sky. So anyway, so I've been having really good luck with these. I think 8 or 10 is what I've caught in these, and I made 3 of them. You know, it takes about 20 minutes to put one together, and you know, they seem to work really well. When, you know, you make a catch, you'll see a tail sticking out the back end, and you'll know that's about the, you know, it's time to bring it in the shop and reset it. So if you're having a problem with 13 stripers, I would guess also rats. You want to use a rat trap, but you don't want to expose the trap to stuff that you don't want to catch, you know, like birds or, you know, rabbits, your wife's chickens, anything like that. You know, these boxes sure seem to be a really good way to do it. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. Visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.